Hello and welcome to On the Record, a debate-style television talk show where Bahamians will find the balance through an open debate you've been looking for. With most jobs, you are given specific tasks related to your area of expertise and concentration, focusing on the things that relate to your role. But when you run a country, almost everything is your responsibility. You have matters of the economy, health, social services, and then there's the infrastructure. It's expensive to build, it must be maintained and upgraded constantly. And no matter how much of it you do, it never seems to be enough. Just this week, the Prime Minister gave a national address where he talked about the proposed roadworks, new airport projects, and other things just to try and keep pace with the expanding population. It's a huge task, despite most of it coming under a single portfolio, the Ministry of Works. Tonight on The Record, we explore the issue of maintaining our aging infrastructure, talking to the minister responsible for it all. It's all on The Record tonight. I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. Our discussion begins on the other side of this break.
Matt, where in the world is Matt Lauer? Where in the world is Ellison Greenslade? And so it's about the low value of cottage in Atlanta. So we can talk about it.
On The Record tonight, the government's purchase of the Grand Lucane is a hot subject in the news. We're going to This is On The Record. He is the Member of Parliament for Carmichael, a former Crown Counsel in the Office of the Attorney General. He was first elected to Parliament in 2007. He now serves as the Minister of Works. The Honourable Desmond Bannister is my guest on The Record tonight. Sir, welcome.
Thank you, and it's good to be here.
It's your first time on the show. Is it? I think it's no, you've been here before. Yeah, okay, so now I'm having a senior moment.
I'll try to have a more memorable occasion this time.
It happens when you're doing these shows constantly. Minister, welcome back, but certainly glad to have you on. I think the timing is fantastic. When I first thought of bringing you on the show, I didn't realize that the timing would be so good based on all that has happened. And we have a lot to talk about. Sure. So first of all, I want to start with the most recent sort of headlines. Prime Minister in a national address this week announced major road works to include widening of roads, roundabout sidewalks, drainage, and even a traffic control system. What was the impetus for this? Why now? And particularly prior to the 2012 election, there was this huge New Providence road work project that ended up costing the government the election in many ways. People were just so angry about what was happening. So why now?
I think it's important that anyone who is elected to office appreciates the responsibility you have to the Bahamian people. And the Ministry of Public Works is blessed with an amazing cadre of technical staff, led by the director, Ms. Melanie Roach. Our engineers, our architects, our quantity surveyors, all of these people who are working with us, every day envision a better Bahamas and how we can make it better for you. So for example, your trip to work in the morning ought to be as seamless as possible so that when you get to work, you're not frustrated and you feel ready to work. If, for example, you're coming down Gladstone Road, which I've had to do on many occasions, and you're stuck in traffic probably from 7 a.m. in the morning for an hour, and a long line going all the way down.
Which means you have to leave home after 6, which means you have to get up from 5.
That's right. It can't be conducive to you having the type of day you want to have. And so we are planning ahead so that we can have the city that all of us want to have. I mentioned to a journalist yesterday that Nassau is no longer this horse and buggy town, which was planned for. And so we have these roads that are 28, 30 years old that we've done nothing with. And we have to plan ahead. We have to get into urban planning. We have to look ahead and advance the city. And so we are planning for a new metropolis. We are planning for a new Nassau. We are planning for a new Bahamas. And everything we do throughout this country fits into that plan.
We, in many instances, are enjoying what would have taken place with the New Providence Road Improvement Project.
Yes.
The new roads, wider roads. I'm still questioning all of the roundabouts. That's the discussion. Yeah. But it seems very soon after that, we're about to enter into another phase of this.
Yes.
How can you assure the public that things are going to be different this time around? There were cost overruns. There were long delays. There was traffic diversions. Even businesses closed down as a result of the diversions in many instances. That work just seemed to go on forever.
Yes.
I mean, we enjoy it now and we look back and think, we went through some serious growing pains, but what's going to be different this time around, considering all of the anguish that motorists suffered, and even business and some homeowners as well. We suffered through a lot with those roadworks.
Well, first of all, some of the consequences were unfortunate. We think we are going to do a much more seamless work that was done previously. But I also want to caution Bahamians, and I get this every day, so I want to caution our people first of all. There has to be some growing pains. And so before a road is paved, I get criticism because the road is challenged, there are challenges.
Road's bad.
Then when we start the work, we get criticism because people want to know why we're doing that road, and they want to know why we're doing it at that time. When the road is finished, even though the road is very, very nice, people criticize us also. It took too long, there are other challenges. It's important for us to do it right. And so, for example, I'll give you an example of Milo Butler Highway recently. People were criticizing us and questioning why we are paving Milo Butler Highway.
When it's a relatively new...
Yeah, well, the truth of the matter is, if you go on Milo Butler Highway at 7 o'clock in the morning, you have traffic, bumper to bumper, and that traffic stays there until 10 a.m. and then you have, so that's 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours in the evening of constant traffic, and then through the day you have traffic. And that does something to the road, that does something to the quality of the road, the service of the road. And so if we are going to have the kind of ride that you want to have, if you want to be able to ensure that your tires last like they should, if you want to ensure that your car is maintained the way it ought to, we have to provide this service for you and for the Bahamian people.
So it's maintenance.
It's important.
It's maintenance.
Yes.
Well, I've got to ask now. I think you've been asked about it, but what will all of this cost the Bahamian people? Who is going to foot the bill for all of this? Any idea on when we are going to know the actual cost, and where will these monies be coming from?
I'm going to speak to some of this in the budget. Of course, I can't speak to it now because it's still in the hands of the Minister of Finance. Sure. But we've put our projections to finance. They know exactly what we need, and they're going to seek to facilitate as much as they can. It is a challenge. We are a country that does not have an income tax, and so everything that comes out of one pot. And quite frankly, the Minister of Finance is doing an amazing job in ensuring that we have the kinds of funds that we need, because the scope of what we're doing is nationwide. You could go on any island, and I can tell you about projects we are doing in those islands to make life better for Bahamians living in those islands. And so we have to be able to be versatile. We have to have engineers, our people moving all the time. And I'll tell you, in private practice, an engineer or an architect may have 1 or 2 projects. In the Ministry of Works, they may have 16 going on at the same time. And so we're really working hard to try to make a difference.
During the a couple of things during the New Providence improvement road improvement project, funds came from the IDB. There was an IDB loan that helped to fund that. Are you looking at something like that in this instance? And also along those lines, I noticed here that some of the road improvements are including the family islands as well. I want to touch on that. So again, can we see a loan facility coming from the IDB or some other organization?
The government already has a loan facility with the IDB for climate resilience. One of the critical things that we take for granted is the protection of our beaches. The Bahamas is known for beautiful beaches. That's why people come here. But we go on our beaches and we denude them. We pull up the cocoa plum trees, pull up the sea grape trees, which are there to protect the coastline. We pull up the weeds that are there, that naturally grow there. And then we let those casuarina grow there. The first casuarina does not put in a deep root. And so the first heavy winds you come, the casuarinas get knocked down, our beaches erode. We have a national plan that is being funded by the IDB, where we are going to protect these beaches. And you're going to see that happen starting in New Providence. You're going to see it in Andros. You're going to see it in Grand Bahama. And I believe you're going to see it in Long Island. But you're going to see us, with the help of the IDB, ensure that we protect what makes the Bahamas, what makes the Bahamas unique.
So you're going to access those monies for the road improvements as well?
No, we're going to access those roads, those funds to protect our beaches.
Now,
the road improvement funding is generally budgeted funding. Also, we are looking at several PPP agreements.
Private-public
partnerships with private sector contractors. There'll be any number of interesting and innovative methods to finance it.
So as a taxpayer, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, so this is where part of my VAT money is going?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Oh,
So and that is the question, because you know, the minute you start talking about loans, you talk about IDB loans, or you know, people start to say, well, wait a minute, I'm paying 12% on goods and services now and value-added tax, which is supposed to be used towards paying down this debt. But now we're having this conversation about loans.
Yeah, it's important for us to also appreciate, and I believe the Minister of Finance has been very transparent with respect to VAT funding and where the money is being used. But it's important for us to appreciate that even though we are paying down some of our obligations, we must still maintain the city and this country in a manner which ensures that we have a standard of life that we want to have.
Minister, and I will say this, that you know, people talk about, and we've complained, and I sat here and complained about having to pay that increase. But if I'm paying that increase, I want to be able to enjoy some things as a result of that increased taxation. And if you are sitting and saying that we are going to improve the roads, I'm happy to hear that. You know, I have a pretty decent car, and I cringe when that falls in holes and some of the things that I have to endure on the road. So if you're telling me that my tax money is being used in a tangible way, then that's a discussion I'm prepared to have, and that's something I'm prepared to listen to. But I want to also talk about some of the major road works that were announced in the Prime Minister's speech to help us understand sort of why these areas are being targeted. We're talking about the widening of Gladstone Road. Every time I drive that road, I thought to myself, why wasn't this road not included in the New Providence works, you know, several years ago? Because the volume of traffic on that road, but you're widening it.
Yes, Gladstone Road needs to be a 4-lane highway, 2 lanes in each direction. And I've just signed off on the consultancy studies now. And one of the things I want everyone to appreciate is that we don't do these things overnight. We start with consultancies. We start with measuring the volume of traffic that a road takes. We look at consultancies, to engineering consultancies, and we are signing off on that now. And we anticipate that once this engineering consultancy is in, we'll be able to put the work out to tender and start the actual work. Gladstone Road is one of those that's going to be a major focus for us.
And that's going to move, I'm sure it's going to move traffic and help in some ways. But you're looking at things like extending the Milo Butler Highway all the way south to Cowpen, widening Blue Hill Road at the intersection of Cowpen into now 4 lanes, the extension of the Tonic Williams Darling Highway between JFK and Bethel Avenue into 4 lanes, expansion of Blue Hill Road between Soldier Road and Carmichael. How were you able to determine, I mean, aside from having to drive them myself, and I know that they are in need of widening and work needs to be done because it's always frustrating in some of those areas, but were the proper studies done to look at things like environmental impact? How is it going to affect businesses on that road? Particularly, you know, you've got some major businesses that need access. You've got the dump, you know, the city dump that's on the road there, Tonic Williams Darling Highway, talking about extending. Gladstone Road has a number of businesses as well. And I asked this earlier, but did you do some kind of studies that you can bring to the Bahamian people to say, hey, we've looked at this, we know what the impact will be, and we can anticipate this is what will happen?
We've done the consultancies, as I've indicated. We know exactly what we're doing. But let me give you an example. Recently, we did some work that had been sitting down, pending for years. That's West Bay Street. And if you start West Bay Street from Blake Road and you continue to go west, we've spent the last few months putting waterworks in there that were never there and paving that road.
That road's been a challenge for a long time.
And I can tell you that work went seamlessly. Most of the work went on at night. Residents, every time I go along there, residents complimenting on the work that we did and the manner in which it was done so that there was the least possible inconvenience to them.
I can attest to that because I travel that road sometimes, and there were the diversions.
That's right.
But it did not create the kind of chaos that we would have seen in some previous instances. Now, if I want to sort of, as a citizen now, read up and find out what's going to happen, where's that information now where people can actually go and see what's being done?
You know, public information is a challenge.
Okay.
The Ministry of Public Works continues to seek to be able to provide as much information as we can to the public. And I'm glad that you raised that issue because in the public service, it's not generally realized and appreciated how important it is to keep the public constantly informed. So certain simple things like ensuring that we have signs out appropriately, ensuring that notices are given. Those challenges are challenges that we continue to confront on a daily basis. But I'm glad that you raised this because it's also important for us to engage the public on social media. And you would have
go there for everything else.
Yes, absolutely. And you would have seen recently BPL has hired somebody who is well known in the media.
One of my colleagues.
One of your colleagues. Because we realize how important it is to engage the public.
The whole of BPL, we'll talk about
so
that. We'll have a discussion on BPL later on now. Well, we're going to take our first break in the show. When we come back, we'll continue our discussion. You're watching On the Record. We're back right after this. Hello and welcome to On the Record, a debate-style television talk show where Bahamians will find the balanced, true, and open debate they've been looking for.
And the icon goes to On the Record.
On the Record was born out of a desire to do something different. What we do every day helps our country, it helps our society, it helps to shape the views and opinions.
Listen, what is more dangerous than
Gentlemen, we've got to move very quickly. Let's wrap up.
integrity?
It's all On the Record. I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. Our discussion begins on the other side of this break. Welcome back. Our topic tonight is maintaining our aging infrastructure. My guest is the Minister responsible for Public Works, the Honourable Desmond Bannister. In his third national address, the Prime Minister said that traffic was a key focus for his government. One of the initiatives announced was the establishment of a traffic management centre to monitor all signals remotely. Where are you looking at putting this? How will this work, and what kind of improvements can we expect? One of the angst that drivers have with these traffic lights that seemingly go on and off as they please.
Yeah. I'm so excited about this, but before I go into this, let me say something about traffic signals. I want to caution our people to be careful around traffic signals. We have spent so much money replacing traffic signals that our drivers have knocked down.
Every weekend.
And then not only knock down the traffic signals, but also hit the control boxes. We've had one situation where traffic signals were off for weeks because the control boxes were actually hit and hit so hard that they were sent on the roof of a building.
What?
So I want to caution our people to be careful how we drive and ensure that we protect what we have, because these are, as you indicated, this is our tax money at work for us. And when we have to replace it, we're replacing it with your tax money.
These drivers held almost every Monday morning, and I see it, a traffic signal is down, road signs are down.
Absolutely.
And we've single-handedly destroyed just about all the railings that were put in place to protect pedestrians, on these major roads. We destroy the things that we have.
Absolutely.
And it bothers me when I see it all the time, because I'm asking myself, who is accountable when you knock down a utility pole and when you do these? Who pays for this?
And if you go on the airport corridor, you will see utility poles being knocked down every week. And as you said, we are actually looking now at a stronger railing, because so many of them have been destroyed by drivers. So I want to just caution our drivers to be more careful as we approach these areas, because it does cost you.
I wonder
and me, all of
sometimes if
us.
we think we're on a runway as opposed to a road. I often, because I look and say, I wonder where these people going. Anyway, let's talk about the Traffic Management Center.
but
What's that going to do?
What we have started now is replacing traffic signals in any number of areas. So what we have done is we've put them on timers, and we've put backup systems to them, so that if there's a challenge with power, those signals are going to continue to work.
Okay.
And you will see that modernization going on with all of our traffic signals now through this island. When that process is almost finished, we are going to seek to be able to control the traffic signal process from a remote location. And so whatever has to happen in terms of adjusting them, whatever has to happen in terms of making changes or improvements, we ought not to have to go there to make those changes.
So, for instance, if you're having an event somewhere and thousands of people are moving out of that venue, you'd be able to do some things to adjust.
You ought to be able to make
or if
adjustments.
you notice that there is a heavy, if there's an accident or something, you'll be able to do those kinds
And
of
depending on what the statistics tells us about what the traffic flow, we can make changes and adjustments.
Make sure you put some CCTV cameras in place, and when people crash into these things, you can follow them up and make them pay.
Now the police are doing that.
Yes,
and,
good.
And I have to commend my colleague.
I think you should
Mr.
publish
James.
their
They are
names.
doing that.
Yeah.
But this is exciting, because we're moving into a new era of what our young people will be able to get into in terms of their computer savviness, their intellect, their ability to have an electronic city. And these are the kinds of things that we're going to be doing.
I've got to ask too. I note that in the Prime Minister's address, some family islands will be getting some new roads. In the last sort of major capital road works, it was called the New Providence Road Improvement Project. But you're talking about road works in Andros, in Abaco, and even in Long Island.
Yeah.
How and why were these islands selected, and what do you expect the impact to be when you're talking about multi-million-dollar projects on these islands? Some of them are currently underway, eh?
Yeah. Oh yeah, and just give me a minute on this, because this is very important to me. Protecting the ecology of our country is very important. If you go to Family Islands, as I know you have gone, in many cases, we've built roads across creeks and across waterways. And so we've disrupted our waterways. In Abaco, we built a highway in North Abaco across a waterway. And so the water, by separating the waterways and not putting culverts in, we created an area that they call the stink pond.
This is stagnant now.
Yes, stagnant. And so what we have done, if you go in North Abaco now, you'll see that we are paving that road, but we're also installing huge culverts so that the water can flow naturally, so that the wildlife can return, the fish can spawn, and that whole area is going to return to how it ought to be naturally for our children and our grandchildren. We're doing the same thing in Andros. In London Creek is a huge creek, a beautiful area in Andros. We put the road right across London Creek and didn't put huge culverts in there. So we're going to put proper culverts in there. My home in Stanyard Creek, we're going to do the same thing. In Elbow Key, in Abaco, Hope Town, which so many people love and so many of our visitors come. Hurricanes over the years have virtually destroyed and eroded the coastline, so much so that half of the road is gone. And there's a threat that the island could be essentially cut in half. You're going to see the Prime Minister go down there and sign a contract so that we can reinstate that coastline, reinstate that road, and preserve Elbow Key. So you're going to see these ecologically conscious activities that we're going to do, not simply paving roads, but preserving the Bahamas.
It's a little different for the Family Islands, obviously, because the ecology is a bit different, and you have a lot of roads that run, parallel to coastlines and things of that nature. So I do understand the complexities there. Now, I have to ask, though, from a contractual perspective, what percentage of these contracts are going to Bahamian contractors, and how are they being divvied out? There's always a concern about who is getting contracts to do roads. Are these people qualified? And we know the backstory. A lot of times contracts are given as political favors and thank yous to people who have supported either by means or just given. And so, we know the history of contracts and how they are tied. But, what percentage are Bahamian, and what's the process, and how transparent is that process?
Well, first of all, I was trying, as he was speaking, I was trying to think of contracts that went to foreigners. And I can't think of any. There may be some from my ministry, but I can't think of any. We have a growing group of exceptional Bahamian business people, and a lot of very, very young ones who are making a difference in this country. You would have seen me stand in Parliament and criticize the former administration for giving out some $85 million worth of road contracts without tendering. Since I've been minister, I have not done that with any road contracts.
So every contract has gone to tender?
Every contract over $50,000. Well, a $50,000 contract is nothing. You could hardly build a portion of a sidewalk.
And that's an educational. Maybe you tell me 50,000. That seems like a lot of money.
No. The law gives the minister discretion with a contract of 50,000 and under. That was set in, I think, in the 1970s when 50,000 was something. If you get a $50,000 contract now, you're probably going to make $5,000 of it.
Wow.
And so that has to be changed. That has to. Because
you're talking about increasing that limit?
That has to be changed, and
Why?
I'm sure the government will look at it, because there are things that have to be done and have to be done quickly, and you cannot send it out to tender. The value of $50,000 when the legislation was put in place is now about 5 times that. So $50,000 in those days is now worth about $250,000. For me to do something now urgently that is important to you, if there's an emergency, as a minister, I can't do it. And it's important for me to be able to meet those emergency situations.
How do you put in the safety net, though, to ensure that that's not abused?
I think when you see the new legislation that we're coming up with, I think you'll be very, very pleased with it. So let me just continue this train of thought. Contracts under $50,000 are essentially at the discretion of the ministry, and my professional officers will recommend contractors who can do that. And that's the livelihood, the lifeblood of small Bahamian contractors. The guy on the street who can do a small job, take home $5,000 at the end of the job, feed his family. And then you have another set of contracts that the tenders board will make a decision on. That does not have to go to cabinet. And then you have contracts over $250,000. Those contracts go to cabinet. Every major road contract over $250,000 since I've been minister has gone to cabinet. Every single one has gone to tender among Bahamian professional road builders. And so you're not going to have anyone be able to stand up in Parliament, as I did, and criticize this administration for giving out $85 million worth of contracts without putting it to tender. That isn't going to happen.
Are you able to give an assurance too that even those given out were given to the right company or the right candidate and the qualified one?
Well, remember now,
these contracts always come under scrutiny for political reasons.
And remember now, these are contracts under $50,000. So these are little sidewalks.
I'm talking about the larger ones that go to cabinet as well that now need cabinet
No, they've
approval.
been to tender. The process is that they go to tender. And now they go to a selective tender. I'm not going to have Jerome Sawyer tender on a $5 million project.
And I've never built a road in my life, right?
We have pre-qualified contractors
Okay.
who can do certain levels of work. Those contractors can tender on work over a certain amount of money.
Because you know, Minister, sometimes people, we set up these companies, I don't know nothing but building a road, but you know, use the minister, use my boy, and I help you get elected, I get the contract, and now I got to go seek someone to do the work.
And too often in the past, that was how it worked. What you're going to love about the new procurement legislation that we're going to bring to Parliament is that all of this is going to be on the internet. And so, say for example, we want to build a road and the road is going to cost $5 million to build. That tender is going to go on the internet. And everyone who tenders, you're going to be able to see who tenders.
And
You're
see
gonna be able to see
who's involved with the
how-
company.
You're going to be able to see how much money they tendered for. You're going to be able to see who won the tender. And if the lowest tenderer didn't win, you're going to be able to question why he didn't
Are
win.
you able to see who the directors and owners are as well, or is it going to be that granular?
The process is supposed to be completely transparent.
Okay.
And so when this happens, it's going to be important for Bahamians, to hold all of us accountable, because it is a system of accountability.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to move forward to some of the things that have been talked about as well are the improvements and construction of some Family Island airports, a new airport terminal in Exuma, a new airport terminal in Deadman's Key, Long Island, tune of $13.5 million. Great Harbor Key Airport to be built shortly. These are significant. Family Islanders have cried out for airports for years. I mean, we've all gone and, you know, the airport is probably a little bigger than this desk, you know, that you have to suffer through. And now you're looking to improve these airports. Why these specific airports were chosen, and what about the others?
There are 4 major airports, I think, that are very important to the economy of our country. North Eleuthera Airport has probably the most significant number of private traffic movements of any airport in this country.
More
other
than
New
Apico?
Providence. Yes. Private traffic movement, private planes coming in, and they're coming in essentially to Harbor Island. That airport is in a critical state. It is not the safest airport. They need an entirely new airport, and the plans for that airport are beautiful. We're going to have a wonderful airport there. Exuma has a huge amount of scheduled air traffic, and it's important for us to be able to do the same thing in Exuma. So we are modeling 2 airports. The Exuma Airport and the North Eleuthera Airport are going to be fairly similar. They're going to be modeled very much like each other, and we're going to be able to ensure that they are adequate in being able to meet the future needs.
Deadman's Key and Great Harbor Key.
Well, before I go to that, the reason why it's important is because we realized after building an airport in Marsh Harbor that we did not build for the future. And so Marsh Harbor has needs now to expand.
Wow, already.
Now, there are 2 other airports I think that are very significant. You will see work going on in the Berry Islands. And Berry Islands has air traffic, private air traffic, at a large rate, an amazing number. And so we've actually determined that we're moving with Berry Islands now. The contractor has actually been mobilized, and he's beginning to work on that airport. And then you have Long Island. The people in Long Island have long cried out for an airport. If you go into Long Island, you will see the most amazing thing. You will see that people actually live on the other side of the runway,
I know it well.
and they have to come across the run, drive across
get to the
runway.
airport.
Yeah, to get to go and do business.
Yeah, to leave, yeah.
So we have to build an
fix that.
airport there to meet the needs. Now what's important, and I want to emphasize this for our people, airports don't go up overnight. We have architectural consultancies, and we have engineering consultancies. And it's important for the architects and engineers to do their work, because you will see under the former administration, you will see that geotech studies weren't done. And then you find that a building is put up for millions of dollars over sinkholes. That is the type of thing that is important for us to avoid. And so
Very
we have to
quickly,
ensure that we don't do that.
We've got to go to a break, but
Yeah.
any mention or any plans to tackle the island, the airports in the southern Bahamas? We have some islands on there that have some airports that are really deplorable.
I think as a country we have to look at what the priorities are first, and each budget period seek to tackle those that are most urgent. The government a few years ago had a study by a group called Stantec. And Stantec determined which were the priority airports in the country, which airports required upgrading urgently, which airports were critical to the economy of the Bahamas. And those are the airports that we are starting with.
So it goes back to numbers. Final question before we go to the break. I'm going to take a little liberty here. Also from the Prime Minister's address, 2 years after Hurricane Irene ravaged Ragged Island, the Prime Minister announced this week $8 million to rebuild key public infrastructure on that island.
Yes.
Coming soon will be an RFP, or a request for proposal, for a solar generation facility. Again, touted to be the first green island. Simple question. Why did it take so long, sir? It has been, and the people of Ragged Island have really endured this why so long?
Quite frankly, from my perspective, it's not a long time. And
To
it's
be without an island?
And it's important for us to appreciate what goes into planning. When I went to Ragged Island after the hurricane, where the airport was, and I looked at the footing of where
There was
the
a
airport
foundation and 4 chairs. That's
It
what I
was
saw.
a
when I went there, yeah.
foundation in less than 6 inches of dirt. They had not gone down to rock. And that's one of the reasons why you had a challenge. They had not gone down to put the footings down properly. There was no stability. And when you had that, of course, the first big wind you have is gonna blow it away. And that's why I emphasized what I did in the last discussion we had about airports. We have to plan things properly in the Bahamas. We have to ensure that when we put something down, it's gonna stay down. And so our engineers have been back and forth to Ragged Island. The architects have been working on the project. And when you see us now put the work out to tender, it means that we're going to put something in Ragged Island that's going to stay in Ragged Island, and that's going to prevail. Unless you have the worst category of storm, it's going to prevail, it's going to remain there. It's going to be well planned for the future of Ragged Island. Not something to simply throw up and say we've done something. That's not the way, that's what was done with Bamsey. That's why we have this disgusting challenges we have now at Bamsey, where I still have the budget money for Bamsey. That's why I have a baseball stadium now that should have cost $16 million. It's going to end up costing more than $30 million. That is why we have a Star Academy on Wolf Road that the government is going to have to spend $30 million on, that the government doesn't own the land, and the government doesn't even lease the land. Those are the kinds of challenges that we have in this country because of poor planning. So we're doing the appropriate planning, we're doing the appropriate amount of work, and when we put something in the ground, it's going to stay in the ground.
Different perspective, interesting. Glad you could share it with us. If you are enjoying our discussion, stay tuned. Our show continues right after this quick break. Hello and welcome to On the Record, a balanced, true and open debate you've been looking for. And Welcome back. Bahamas Power and Light reported this month that the company has insufficient generation to meet the demands on its system. BPL finds itself in a delicate dance over the next few months. Our topic tonight is maintaining our aging infrastructure with the minister responsible for public works, the Honorable Desmond Bannister. This is probably the segment everybody's been waiting for, to talk about BPL. We have, once again been suffering through these constant outages as BPL tries to meet the demands, particularly at summertime. 7 multi-fuel engines are expected to power this $95 million electricity plant. Testing and commissioning expected late summer is what was reported. I want to start with that. Where are we with trying to alleviate this problem when you talk about, the fact that the corporation admitted we cannot meet the demand? How are these 7 engines going to help, and when can we expect them online?
We have made some amazing progress, and just consider that this is only the second year of our government, and we've been able to bring in these fantastic engines and generators that the Bahamas has not seen the likes of before. Let me just give you an anecdote. When we had the fire at BPL, and we looked around at clearing it up and cleaning up, and you looked at the plaque to see when some of those generators were installed. The minister responsible at that time was Loftus Roker. Some of those generators are your age.
40-something?
Yeah, they are in your age group. So just imagine that we have generators that were older than you, and they were powering our city, and we were so complacent all of these years that we didn't replace them. What we did instead over the last few years, was bring in rental generation that cost us significant millions of dollars, that was not the most reliable, and we sought to utilize that instead of looking for permanent solutions. What we have now in the Bahamas is a plan for a permanent solution that is going to make a difference in your life, in the lives of your family, and that you can have reliable, dependable electricity, and your business, as a businessman or businesswoman in this country, you can feel comfortable that you're going to have generation that's reliable, and you're going to have the ability with those engines to utilize different fuels. So if diesel is too expensive, we can go to heavy fuel oil. Heavy fuel oil is too expensive, we can go to LNG, which is cleaner and better to use. I saw this, I was in Gibraltar 2 weeks ago. Gibraltar had the same challenge we had. They had a fire in their power plant. They entered into a contract with Shell, just as we have. They now have a completely new power plant, and they have a new facility next to that power plant. They are very, very pleased with what they've been able to do. And I think come the end of this year, the Bahamian people are going to start to see a change. And they're going to be pleased with what we have done.
When will we start to feel that? When will these generators be up and operational, and we'll begin to move past these dark and hot days?
Appreciate that what we're doing now would normally take a company like Wärtsilä 9 months. They're seeking to do it in 5 months. So we anticipate that by the end of the year, we anticipate that we are going to be in a much better place. And certainly by next summer, we expect that you are going to be very comfortable.
So we could continue, we can expect to have, I guess, more of the same in terms of the outages.
BPL is load shedding.
Yeah.
And BPL has to load shed now. And it's important for us to realize, and that's why I started by saying where we've come from, where we've been. These old generators, these rental generators, inadequate powers, and all of us have been sitting around complacent about it.
Minister, can you give us an assurance that this is the last time we're going to have to go to this? I'll tell you why. I have an oven that's down, and I have a microwave that's down in my house. Right, as we speak, as a result of these outages, I haven't even got to the cost yet, but just having to suffer through this. You wake up sometime in the middle of the night, your house is still. You come home during the day and you realize your appliances are blinking, they've been on and off. It's costing us. I haven't gotten to the cost factor yet.
There are two things I'm going to show you of, and you don't have to get to the cost factor. First of all, you're going to have reliable generation. And secondly, you can have low electricity bills.
Okay.
I will assure you of those two things.
Because I will tell you, sir, that one of the greatest burdens on the backs of the Bahamian people is the cost of electricity.
Absolutely.
It affects the way we live. It affects our businesses. I can tell you, there were times, I was praying that my electricity didn't get cut off because my bill was, I had to be looking out the window to see if the BPL truck was stopping at my house. That's how I live. I'd pay a little something on the bill. People suffered, sir.
And you and I both appreciate that. And we appreciate why we have that situation in the country. I think it's important for all of us as intelligent human beings to look at the circumstances we face and require more of governance. We haven't required it over the last few decades. We've been complacent in allowing BPL to be what it was. And you know what it was? You could come out of high school, you could go to BEC, and you could easily get a job because some politician sent you there.
That's many ministries, so that's the public service. But
go
ahead. I accept we talk about.
And then you get paid better than every.
Yeah, no, they get good money.
Else. Yeah. And at the same time, we were doing the same thing over and over again, and nobody was
expecting a different result.
Accountability. Now we're doing something different. Now we're making a change, and that comes with some pains.
So
but when that is in place, you're going to see a difference.
So I asked you, I'm glad you brought up the pains, and I'm going to jump forward to that. And I want to talk about, you talk about accountability and what's happening within the company. And I suspect you're speaking to the operations and how things are running. When you have a situation, though, like where just recently this month, Ian Pratt is named as a COO, acting Chief Operating Officer, after replacing Christina Alston, who left abruptly. We look at that from the public's perspective and we ask, what is going on? When your COO leaves abruptly in a company that's already gone through some issues, that says to me, something's wrong on the inside.
No, what it says to me is that she made a decision she was going to leave. And for whatever reason she has, well, that's a question that you'll have to ask her. I think that's important.
It was not communicated to you what the reasoning was.
No, I don't think I should be discussing a decision that Mrs. Alston made, and I don't know that I should be discussing her decisions-making process in the media. I think that's something for her to discuss if she wishes, and she may wish privacy in that, and you have to respect that.
This is a little different from what would have transpired in August of 2018, when you would have had board members who resigned, including the former Executive Chairman Darnell Osborne, and that exploded in the media. Yeah. You're on one side, she's on the other side. She's claiming political interference and disrespect. You are commenting. That's this huge debacle again within BPL that the public is watching. So now, have you taken a different position now?
No, I think I ought to have handle that a little differently from the public perspective.
So you admit that you should have handled it a little differently?
No, I did not handle it the way I would normally handle something. Not what I did, but how I spoke to it in public. But I don't want to speak to that because some of that is in litigation.
Sure. And
there's also a group that is investigating it. And I think when you get the investigation and you get the results, the Bahamian people will see and be able to make their own decisions.
Now, I'm glad you brought up the investigation as well. Yes. I think the Prime Minister announced in April that this investigation was taking place. Where are we with that? When can we expect a report on this probe that has been undertaken?
The Prime Minister has engaged a highly professional group that is respected internationally. I have no control over them. And so I cannot answer your question.
Well, you're not involved at all?
No. Well, it's important for me to be able to to share my viewpoints with them.
Sure.
But they're going to make their decisions independent of me. That's the beauty of what he's done. That is something that is above my head, and they will make independent decisions, and the Bahamian people will be able to see exactly what happened.
I have to ask you, how did all of that affect the operations of BPL? That could not have boded well for what was happening.
You have a wonderful board that is working well together now, and BPL is moving ahead.
And so you're satisfied with the direction that they're moving in?
Absolutely. The chairman is doing an amazing job, and the board members are keeping him on his toes too.
Okay. Do you still have the same level of involvement that you would have had with Osborne and her crew?
As the minister, I have always been involved in the policy-making decisions at BPL, and I continue to be involved in the policy-making decisions. The government wants BPL to move in a certain direction in the interest of the Bahamian people. And that's important for me as the minister, to let them know what the policy directives of the government are.
One of the things that your government did was introduce an exemption on VAT for bills less than 300, correct?
Yes.
How?
We've done that on 2 occasions.
Right. How did that affect, or how was that received? Did that help? What was the response? I mean, what did that do?
I think there is a group of people who it helped, but there's also a group of people who chronically cause challenges for BPL.
Really?
And the challenge is this. Jerome Sawyer is renting an apartment unit where he has 6 units, and he brings tenants in. Some of them are unstable. 2 of them move on. He seeks to rent that unit again, and he finds that the tenant has left him with a bill. That is a receivable for BPL. When you do that over a few years, and you can multiply your angst in dealing with that, with the thousands of people who are doing the same thing, BPL ends up having receivables like they have now, which approach $90 million to $100 million.
The Bahamian people owe $90 million?
That's the kind of receivables they have. And that's one of the challenges we have.
90 million?
Well, on a regular day, it can be $90 to $100 million. And I will update the figure. Yes, in just paying our electricity bills. So there are persons who are stable homeowners who will benefit from that. But remember now, there are many, many people who are going to do whatever they can to get out of anything. And so they will not necessarily benefit from that. And I wanted to utilize that example to show you the challenges that BPL has on a daily basis.
In March, fuel surcharge dropped below 19 cents, first time in 6 months, and again in April to 17.82 cents per kilowatt. Explain, first of all, how did that happen, considering that I think there was a cap in place at 19. How did that happen, and are we going to sort of continue to see that decline?
Yeah, I think as you have these new generators and engines come in, you're going to see a tremendous decline in that. BPL has some goals as to what the figures ought to be, and I expect that you're going to see that surcharge virtually vanish over the next few years.
Have you been able to determine what would have happened with those fires that would have put us in this position in the beginning? And I have to remind people sometimes of how we got into this position.
Well, the fires were part of the problem, but the fires also were part of the awakening. Don't let's forget that. And I'm aware of what the results are. And as soon as I'm able to provide that information to the public, I will.
Was it arson?
As soon as I'm able to provide that information to the public, I will.
And if there are charges, will charges be levied if they have to be?
If anything that has to be done will be done under this government. But it's important for me to say what I've said to you.
Okay, I accept that, and we will be waiting. We look forward to hearing that, because
Absolutely.
I think
and this is,
people want to know what happened.
Remember, this is a government of transparency, and we will provide the information.
We will await it, sir. There is something called a 9-figure refinancing that is to cause rate reduction bonds to be to restructure BPL's multi-legacy liabilities.
Yeah.
Explain to us what that means and how that's going to work.
over the years, BPL has not been the most responsible. BEC was not necessarily the most responsible company. I remember in the early 2000s, before we came to power, a minister had determined that the rates would be reduced. Rates were reduced. The FNM came into power in 2007, and we found that we had to borrow $200 million. The government had to guarantee a $200 million loan just to keep BPL going. That's one of the first things we met. So over the years, BPL has essentially they operate like the Water and Sewage Corporation, where essentially they subsidize some of their operations. So for example, when you're getting water, you're getting the first 3,000 gallons free. And then you're paying a rate on water that is not what they're paying. So the government is essentially paying a good portion of what you get for water. Over the years, that has increased to $300–400 million. Wow. And that is money that BPL cannot recoup, and they have to find ways to raise bonds so that the funding can be provided for the operations of BPL. And that's the simplest way for me to explain it. So we have a group that I appointed, an eminent group of professionals led by Mr. Jeff Andrews, who had what is called a rate reduction bond board. And they are looking at how the money is to be raised. And from everything I understand, we are looked at very favorably in terms of those funding.
Final question before we go to a break into our last segment. When are we really going to take or how seriously are we about harnessing solar energy and harnessing the energy of the wind and currents around us? You know, you talk about these 7 engines and what they're going to do, but every day we walk outside, the sun is beaming down on us. We have the ability to power ourselves, but it seems the system is set up almost to prohibit that. It's not cost effective. People who do it tell me it's a hassle to even try and come off the grid. You know, when we have all of these things around us that can assist in alleviating the load, so BPL doesn't have to come and tell us we have an issue providing power, when all around us we have the ability to harness this energy, but we don't seem to have created an environment to foster that.
I'll tell you what is the most promising thing right now, and then I'll touch on something else. The most promising aspect of that right now is for homeowners to be able to solarize their homes. And if they can't solarize their homes completely, to be able to at least put in a solar water heater or something else that is powered by solar. If you put in a solar water heater, and I see, my high school class has a chat, and I put in a photograph of one of these old water heaters that we have that keep those water heaters heat and reheat all over day after day. I hope you don't have one of those. If you have one of those, I hope you have a switch on it.
Yes.
But that causes your bill to, that is probably one of the biggest culprits you have in your house when it comes to your power bill. And I keep encouraging Bahamians to get rid of it. I got rid of mine at least 10 years ago, and I'm really, really pleased that I got rid of it. But solar water heaters are a wonderful opportunity for individual homes. Now, there is an investment like everything else. You have to make a small investment to make it pay off. But the savings to you at the end, and your family at the end of the day, is so huge, so amazing.
But is the process in place to allow that to happen? Because I have people
Absolutely.
complaining that, you know, once it's so prohibitive sometimes to be able to do it, we call it coming off the grid.
Yeah, people, that's not taking you off the grid, but you have BPL has a SSRG, a small scale renewable program, which encourages this, and many homeowners are taking advantage of it.
Good to know.
But secondly, at the commercial level, BPL expects to be putting out RFPs, starting with Ragged Island and moving on with a number of other islands in very short order, where you're going to see other types of renewable energy, whether it's solar or any other number of types of renewable energy platforms. I want to say to you that a lot of times we overemphasize the commercial viability of solar in New Providence, because unless you're a large company where you have the facilities to put solar down, New Providence is not an island where you can get a tremendous amount of power from solar, because solar takes a lot of land. You take a certain amount of acreage just to get a small amount of energy from solar. So at the commercial level in New Providence, it's not the most viable option.
We don't have the land.
But it can be an option for some of the larger companies. We don't have the land in New Providence. Andros is different. A number of the other islands are different. And there are opportunities there for solar.
Well, hopefully we get to see that soon, sir. We've got to take our final break. You are watching On the Record. We are back right after this.
You know, Matt, where in the world is Matt Lauer? Where in the world is Ellison Greenslade? And so it's about the low value of cottage in Atlanta. So we can talk about it.
More on the record tonight. The government's purchase of the Grand Lucine is a hot subject in the news. We're going to... This is our final segment. I'm talking to the Minister responsible for Public Works, the Honourable Desmond Bannister. Minister, we're out of time, but I've got to ask you this question. Budget comes to the House next week. What can we expect? What can we look forward to? Any big surprises this time around?
Well, that's a question for the Minister of Finance, of course.
Well, you sit around the cabinet
But
table.
the challenge for us is to be able to have the funding we need to do what we have to do. You would have seen in the last year we completed the Smiths Point seawall. We have started to work on the courthouse in Grand Bahama. We are working on the Monument Road in Long Island. We have so much work to do, and as you've gone through some of it, we want to improve the infrastructure of this country. And so the funding of our budget is, we're looking forward to the funding that we get. And one of the things that's important for you to know is that ministers don't generally know how much funding they're going to get until the end of the day. Until we have our final meetings, we don't know. It's always a work in progress. The Minister of Finance has the ability to continue to work with figures to ensure that the economy remains stable. And we're looking forward to the kind of funding that permits us to make a difference in our country. The Baritari docks, the elbow key work that we're doing throughout this country, infrastructure depends on the Ministry of Works, and we're going to develop that infrastructure with the funding we provided.
Minister, we of course will be looking forward to your budget allocations and contributions to, of course, explain to us more what's going to happen in this upcoming fiscal period. But thank you very much for coming on and talking to us. It's good to get things in perspective, to understand. We see some things going on sometimes and not quite sure what is being done or why, but thank you for coming and sharing and giving us some insight into some of the stuff. I know that there's so much more under your ministry that we didn't get to, but that just means you have to come back and talk another time.
Well, thanks for the invitation, and next time I want to be on the hot seat, I'll come here.
We'll be sure to welcome you. So that's going to do it for us. We hope that you have enjoyed our show tonight. Special thanks to my guest, the Minister for Works, the Honourable Desmond Bannister. Also, thank you to my producer and technical staff. On behalf of all of us, I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. We'll see you next time. Good stuff.